All right, guys, here you see a picture of my cracked rear differential bushing on my M340. I'm going to attempt to do kind of a how-to or a step-by-step on how to go about this job. This job did not go as planned, so I'm lacking some critical footage of when we were actually removing the bushing because I had a buddy come over and help me, and we were just going to town on getting the job done and didn't really have time or the ability to film while we were under the car. But hopefully this helps some people out because I haven't really seen any how-to videos or anything on this platform. There's a couple others that are somewhat similar but not quite the same, and I just wanted to put this out there so hopefully people understand what's involved. And the symptoms I was getting from the cracked differential bushing was I would get kind of a slip and a clunk, a drivetrain kind of slop when I would be almost coming to a stop, and then I would get back on the gas, it would kind of clunk. So I'm going to be upgrading to these poly mounts, these Driveshaft bushings, and these come in 3 different durometers, street, track, and drift, in the order of least to most aggressive. I chose street. I didn't want too much increase in NVH, and it's exactly what these are designed for. So let's go ahead and get started with the install. All right, got the car up on jack stands, and here's the differential, the passenger side differential bushing and the bolt, driver side. And then there's one more, the hydro bushing back here, mounts directly into the subframe. There you can see it. That bolt needs to come out as well. And basically, in order to get access to those bolts and everything, we're going to need to lower the rear differential and get to those bolts. We've got to get all this stuff out of the way. Need to remove the exhaust. And I have this aftermarket brace here that needs to come out. That mid-car brace right there that goes just under the exhaust. And then we will disconnect the front of the exhaust from the downpipe up there and get the exhaust out of the way, get the heat shield out of the way, and then we can get access to our bolts and lower the differential. So I've got to remove this aftermarket brace here. It's an E18, and you have to remove 2 of the subframe bolts. Most of you won't have to do this, but I do since it connects, the subframe to the kind of brace that goes under the exhaust in the middle of the car there. So I'll just show that process. So next we're going to remove the exhaust hanger bolts. We're going to remove 2 of the 3, and we'll do the other one later. They're 13 millimeter, and one's way up there. Remove those, and then we'll move forward. Now we have our E12 to remove the bolts, the 8 bolts in the center brace here, this aluminum brace, and just move across, remove all those E-Torx bolts. Now you also have these 2 10 millimeter screws, 2 on each side, that need to come off. They attach the brace to the plastic panels underneath the car. Go ahead and remove those, and then out comes your brace. Now we've got these 2 13 millimeter nuts to remove, one from the center of the frame there, the other one from the front of the downpipe. I'm going to do this off camera since I can't fit it underneath the car. Now that we've got the front side of the exhaust disconnected, we can remove our last hanger bolt here and begin to lower the exhaust gently. Now we can just pull this exhaust off the downpipe up front and push the exhaust out of our way. Now we have to remove the aluminum heat shield. There's just a bunch of 10 millimeter screws. Some of them are kind of far up there, but just work your way upwards and disconnect all the little 10 millimeter screws and nuts that connect that aluminum heat shield, and it'll come right off. Now we've got these 2 bolts from the driveshaft carrier bracket that we can go ahead and take out, and you'll see the driveshaft start to lower after that. Now we've got these 2 bolts on the front of the differential bushings, and those are 18 millimeter. We're just going to go ahead and break those loose and thread them back out a little bit. We're not going to completely remove them yet because we have the 1 bolt in the back of the differential that we have to also loosen. So we're just going to kind of take these out a little bit. And here you can see the nut we need to get at just over the CV axle there. It's a 21 millimeter. I used a wobble extension to get just enough angle on there to break it loose and go ahead and start to loosen it. And while you're turning the nut, you might need to hold the bolt end of this with a crescent wrench to keep that from spinning. And now we need to remove the vibration dampener. I secured one end with a crescent wrench and the other end is a 16 millimeter. And once you break it loose, just go ahead and thread that out, and that dampener will fall right out after that. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and support the differential with a jack, relieve the tension off that rear bolt, and go ahead and pull that out. And now we can fully remove the front differential bushing bolts. Before we begin to lower the differential, we need to disconnect this ground strap. And here we've lowered the differential maybe about 5-6 inches to get it out of the way and get access to the bushing. All right, guys, I'm going to attempt to show you how this wheel bearing puller kit works to remove this bushing. What worked for me and what didn't work for me initially when I really got stuck on this project. First of all, you can see the crack in the bushing right there. And, you know, even if I give it a little bit of leverage right there, you can really see that crack open up. Maybe you can get it even with a little bit of leverage. So that was what was causing the kind of slip clunk symptom that I was getting when I would come almost to a stop and then get back on the gas, turning out of my house. I could definitely feel that slipping around in there. But the bushing sits in the car. It's got this collared piece, and that faces towards the front of the car. So you can only push this out one way. You know, obviously you can't pull this through the ring on the subframe. You have to push it out that way. I think one of the reasons I had so much trouble with this is because this thing was like fused in here. You can see those marks where it was just kind of perma welded to that ring on the subframe, and it was just really stubborn to get out. I couldn't get it to pop loose or make any progress initially, so I had to call in some backup. But here's kind of the pieces that I used. This is the wheel bearing kit that I will provide the link to. First of all, it comes with this big old bolt that, you know, fits just fine through here with a washer and everything, but that will not at all fit through the bushing right here. So you have to get your own bolt. And here's the bolt I sourced for it when just with, you know, a couple washers that build up to the puck tool there. This is the smallest puck in the kit. And it is, if I take it out, it's just a little bit smaller than the edge or than the, you know, diameter of the bushing right here. So, you know, I tried pushing it through that way, couldn't get it to work. And it was really, you know, with the way you put this in here, and it's, you know, kind of cobbled up around the bracket on the subframe there, you can see it's cockeyed. So when I was trying to pull it, it was pulling it at the top there. And it wasn't really pushing the bushing through. It wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I figured, okay, maybe I need something a little bit bigger diameter. I'll get these washers. They seal up perfectly to the outside of the bushing, and that will push the outer edge of the bushing through instead of, you know, folding in. So I tried that with the washers on there. I'll include some footage of that. That didn't work either. So I start hitting it with the impact here, and the bolt is sucking in and advancing, but the more I do it, the more the top end just sucks in and starts to kind of fold over just like before, so I wasn't making any progress with this. Tried this 3 or 4 different times, tried to kind of reposition everything and hit it again and again, and just nothing. There, puppy was just really in there tight. I could not get it to budge, so called a friend over who's a more experienced mechanic than I am, and he had a little bit bigger bolt. It was probably like an M12, which is what this bolt is from factory. Grade 8, you can even see this bolt. It's a grade 8 bolt. You definitely want grade 8. We even bowed this. I bowed it trying to get it out. So this job takes some muscle. I don't recommend using an impact, but I kind of had to for a little bit there. But you need two hands on this for sure. It is a two-person job, no questions asked. So anyways, with the bigger bolts, some extra washers and stuff like that, you know, we got it in there, and we did just use this piece. We didn't use any washers or anything else, and we did kind of use the rubber to push it through. You'll see as you collapse it, this, you know, rubber part will push all the way in to where it's flush with the plastic right there. And then you just have to keep torquing, and keep torquing on it. And ultimately what we did with the bigger bolt going through here, we wedged a jack with some 2x4s to kind of hold this a little from being like that to being a little bit more straight. So it gives you a little bit more forward thrust and torque. And then I held the wrench on this side, and I was also heating the bracket on the subframe there, the eyelet on the subframe that this bushing is mounted into. It's heating it with a MAP gas torch, and then my buddy was torquing on this end with, you know, a 1/2-inch ratchet wrench. And even that took a lot of muscle and effort and some time, but we finally started to see it move and press through and got it out. So definitely a struggle. The other bushings were actually a lot easier. Like I said, I think this material being fused into that subframe really kind of fought me in the beginning. This was the other side, and it was a lot cleaner removal process. And then here is the hydro bushing up in the subframe. And this one is solid metal all the way around with just a little slit in it. We did use the slightly bigger puck for this one to pull that guy through. And that one wasn't too bad either. It's not a fun job. You know, hopefully you don't get stuck. There's a lot of people out there that are a much better mechanic than I am, and maybe they won't have this issue. Maybe your bushing won't be fused in there like this one was. But hopefully this video helps some of you and either encourage you or discourages you from trying to do this job yourself, because yeah, it was a doozy.